Okay, for this project, Linocut printing, we're going to do the first part, which is finding the image, sizing it, and getting it ready to print so that we can transfer it to our linoleum block. Okay, so I found this image, one of these images that I like. I'm going to use this one here. I want to use this one because it has a nice bold line, a great area for color, and then it also has lettering, so I can show you how to flip the image so that the image the text will produce the right way when you actually go to print. Okay, so I've got that saved. I've got Google Drawing open. I'm going to pull this into here. All right. So now the first thing I can do is size my image. The block that we're working with is 4x6. So what you can do is you can go to Format Options and Size, and you can choose how big you'd like it to be. So we go about 4x6. Okay, and that is the size of the block. Now, if you have a smaller image, you can size it a little bit larger because the outline of it will be 4x6 here. Another thing to keep in mind, some people may run into, is if you lock the aspect ratio, this keeps it from distorting, so it may automatically change. So if I were to change this to 5, it changes it just to keep the proportions. So you want to make sure that if you're trying to get 4x6, you can unlock the aspect ratio and go 4x6. Okay, that's the size. The next thing is mirroring the image. And for this, for lettering, anything you're going to print is going to be a reverse image. So if you want to reverse the image prior to transferring it, because it's going to be backwards. So you go to Arrange, Rotate, Flip horizontally. Okay, this is ready to go. It's sized, it's flipped so that the lettering will print the right way. And all I have to do now is print. Okay, if you're in the art room, you can print to 148. Okay, so I've got my image sized and printed out and ready to transfer to the block. All right, so I like to trace the block and size it up to make sure it fits, if I have to do any adjustments, and then cut out the image so it's a little bit easier to work with. So that fits perfectly. So Google Draw is very helpful in sizing and rotating and editing images for print. All right, so we're ready to go. I got it sized, cut out, ready to transfer to the block. Now you got to decide what side you want to be color for a double print. So here's a little example. What I mean by that is you can have two sides of your block carved. Okay. So this is what another student did. She transferred just the outline of the butterfly on one side, trimmed all of the negative space, and on the other side, she did all of the detail, so that when these two are overlapped together, they create a really cool and bold image. I think she did orange on one side, black on the other. Now you can do two colors. It doesn't have to just be, black. Here's another example here of red and blue. So there's a bunch of different colors you can decide, but you got to figure out what side is going to be the solid color, what side is going to be like the detail. So you can see in here I have two colors. I have gray and I have black. So I can use that as a guide to figure out what outlines I'm going to transfer onto my block. And for this, I think I'm going to do, one side gray and then one side the black. Okay, so all I have to do for gray is I have to trace and transfer the outline of Bigfoot and the lettering. Okay, and to do that, you're going to take a shading pencil and you're going to shade the back side of the printout that you have. Okay, finally got it all shaded in. All right, I've shaded this very heavily. Just make sure you're doing the back. Sometimes students do the front for some reason. Just make sure you shade the whole background here, okay? So you've got a really good amount of graphite here. You're going to take this, you want to lay it on and transfer it, place it, and what you want to do is not move it around, okay? It may be a little smudgy. It's okay, because you're going to print over it. You won't see any of this. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over all of the gray. Okay, so when I take it off, here's what I have. So you can see there's a faint line that where I push through the graphite, it transferred here. Okay, so now you are going to eventually carve this, but with pencil, it's very smudgy. So what you want to do is go over your line in Sharpie. Okay, so now I've established the gray or the color, and I think I'm going to do the black for the other side. So this is a double print, so I'm going to do two different sides. So I'm going to flip this over. Make sure you're flipping it over, this way. Sometimes people get distracted and they might flip it this way or something, and then it's really hard to line up, because remember, you're going to line up these two sides. So you flip it over, place it down, and this one's much easier. I'm just doing the black. Alright, so we're ready to go. We're ready to start carving. I've got my image Sharpied out. I know which side is going to be which. This is where you're going to use the gouge tool here. Alright, so there's a couple different tips for the gouge tool. This is it here. Just be careful. It is a little sharp at the end. There are various types and blade widths. Alright, so the higher the number, the thicker the line. 1 is the smallest, and that's for very fine detail. Okay, you have V-shape and you have U-shape blades. All right, so this is the gouge tool in here. Sometimes you'll see some blades in the back. Okay, so there's a bunch of different blades. You have V-shaped blades for smaller areas, and then there's larger blades for bigger areas. Like if you want to carve out the background, this is great. Like a larger blade here. This is a U shape, and then here's an example of like a 1. It's very small. I would say 2 is probably the best one to start with. It's kind of a little bit easier because you can angle it and get different thicknesses. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold your block, or put your block down, hold your gouge tool, and the first thing I would say is outline your image. Okay, so I'm always staying on top of it, trying to get as close to my Sharpie line as possible. And I'm going to leave the Sharpie line because I'm going to carve everything out but the inside. So basically, if you think of it as a surface, what you're carving away, the ink will not touch. Whatever you leave, that surface will catch the ink when you go over it in the next step of the printmaking process. So you want to carefully go around. Okay, once you have your outline done, you've gone all the way around the details, you can start taking out the background or the negative space. And to do that, if you want to change blades, you could just loosen this piece here. I'm going to go with a larger blade. Put it in between pieces of metal, and you can tighten it up like that. Okay, so once you have the outline, you can kind of carve away the negative space. I would always go outward, like this, because if you're going inward, you're able to hit your image. So sometimes that happens where you're carving and you slip and you go through and you carve your actual image. So that's why I like to outline it. You can go around, and it takes some time. You kind of get into a rhythm, carving away the background. Okay, so that is the image sizing and transferring and carving process. So you can see here I finished the detail, go around the outside, and also on the other side. So both sides are done, and now I'm ready to print. So what we do next is some test printing, the most fun part, and you get to see where you may need to fix or work on a little bit more. So sometimes you'll print and you'll see, oh, I really need to kind of take some more away. So that's where you do the test print and you figure out what it looks like and if you need to do any other additional carving. So let's get to printing in the next video.